Hi, it's Paul here from selfhelpforlife.com, and today I'm going to talk about the differences between feelings and emotions. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions. Is sadness a feeling or an emotion? What do you think? Or what about happiness, joy, anger or lust? And why should I care? Well, knowing the difference between feelings and emotions will help you identify and change negative behaviours more easily, including some that have been going on for years. And by doing that, you'll be able to have more peace and happiness in your life. So what are emotions? Well, emotions are physical. They can be measured objectively. Examples include blood flow, brain activity, facial expressions, body language. These all change when we experience an emotion. And emotions are hardwired into our brain and core being. They're instinctive, and interestingly, they don't vary that much between people. So to give you an example of that, imagine you're in Africa with a group of people walking on safari, and you see a lion. What emotion are you likely to experience? Probably fear. And everyone else in the group will also experience the same fear. Now, how you deal with that fear and how other people deal with the fear may differ, and we'll come on to that later. But you'll all experience that sense of fear. So the purpose of the emotion of fear is to protect you. And emotions really do two things. They either alert you to danger or reward. So it's either danger or reward. And emotions come from the amygdala, which is part of the limbic system or emotional processing part of your brain. And this part of the brain tends to be quite irrational, illogical, but is very powerful as well. And the amygdala sits behind the neocortex, which deals with conscious thought, reasoning and decision making. Now what happens is when the amygdala gets influenced by a strong emotion, brain flow goes away from the neocortex, the reasoning part of your brain, towards the amygdala. And this is why rational thoughts often tend to go out of the window when you're experiencing a strong emotion. And I'm sure you've experienced this at some point in the past, where you've had some kind of overwhelming emotional response and you just can't think logically, and then maybe after that situation a few hours later you think, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I do that? So there's actual physical changes happening in your brain when you experience an intense emotion. And as I say, that's why we sometimes say things that we regret later. Okay, so what are feelings? So unlike emotions, which radiate through our entire body, feelings are in our head or in our mind. And as I mentioned, they come from the neocortex, which is the more logical part of the brain. Now, interestingly, emotions always come first, feelings second. And I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. So unlike emotions, which are very hardwired into our brains, feelings are influenced by our beliefs, memories and life experiences. So feelings are much more subjective. You can't measure feelings. And feeling is the meaning you give to an emotion. Feelings require cognitive input. You can't measure them objectively, unlike emotions, and they're very often subconscious as well. So as a result, feelings can vary dramatically between different people and in different situations. And the person's personality affects the feelings that they will experience. And it's important to know the difference, because you have little control over your emotions, but you have lots of control over your feelings. So that's why it's important to know the difference. So some key differences now between feelings and emotions. So emotions can be very intense, but they are always temporary. For example, laughter is a way of experiencing joy. Crying is a way of experiencing sadness. Now, both of these emotions will die down after a short time. Now, feelings are much less intense, but they can be sustained for longer periods of time. For example, love or worry They're both feelings, and they can be maintained for very long periods of time. If someone dies, you experience sadness. Now this is likely to last for a few weeks. However, for some people, that sadness turns into a feeling of depression, which could go on for many months or even years. So, emotions alert us to the imminent danger and prepare us for immediate survival. They give us the energy that we need for that fight or flight response. So feelings alert us to anticipated dangers and ensure our long-term survival. So in the lion example, the worry or anxiety that comes from thinking about being attacked by a lion is a feeling, and that's protecting us from being in a situation where we could experience that actually happening. But if you ended up in a situation where you were approached by a lion, the emotion of fear would kick in whether you like it or not. So emotions affect the initial attitude that you have towards the situation. E.g., this could be anger about what someone else said or did to you. But if you keep this anger brewing in your head, you'll start to develop the feelings of bitterness or resentment. Emotions also determine what we like and what we don't like, and what are good and bad actions. So if you're experiencing joy or enthusiasm, that lets you know that you're doing good things in life, you're happy, you're pleasing other people, and you're enjoying yourself as well. But if you start to get a lot of feelings of worry, bitterness, or resentment, that's a sign from within that it's time to change something, to evaluate your actions and how those actions are affecting other people. So feelings are created by persistent thoughts and the beliefs behind them. And emotions are created by events and situations in your life. So here's some examples of some typical emotions. So joy, fear, enthusiasm, anger, lust, and sadness. And here are some examples of typical feelings: happiness, worry, contentment, bitterness, love, and depression. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated. Emotions can be experienced from imagined as well as real events. E.g., if you're watching a scary movie, you'll probably notice your heart beats faster, you'll probably notice other physical changes. So why is that? Well, the neocortex, that logical part of the brain, knows that it's just a film. However, the amygdala still sends that emotional response as if it's a real experience. And just to try this out, if you think of a good or a bad time in the past and start to relive it, you will notice the emotion starting to arise, so the amygdala is kicking in there. So if you imagine a situation going badly, the emotion created by that imagined situation starts to drive a negative feeling, which then fuels the emotion even more, which then drives the feeling. So you end up with this vicious circle where it feels like an emotional roller coaster, where you've got no sense of control. And in times like this, it's very hard to use positive thinking to get you out of that vicious cycle. So instead, if you can identify and separate those emotions and get a sense of detachment, you can get off that emotional roller coaster. So now you know that it's extremely hard to control emotions directly, and so you can choose to ignore them and let them go, and instead focus on the feelings instead, because they're a lot easier to change. Now there's various techniques that can help this letting go process. The emotional freedom technique, often known as EFT, the Sedona method, and also regression, which is a technique that's used in hypnosis. So then, once you've let go of the emotions, you can work on the feelings and the beliefs, memories, and life experiences that could be contributing to those feelings. And many techniques such as affirmations, positive visualization, challenging negative thoughts, these are all good strategies to help with this. But you need to remember that feelings are generated by thoughts, memories, and beliefs about previous experiences, and these are things that can all be changed. So knowing the differences between feelings and emotions means that when you experience negative emotions, you will know why. And you can choose to ignore them or let them go, and instead work on changing your feelings instead, whilst maintaining your sense of purpose, identity, and moving towards your goals. So I know this is a little deep, but I hope you enjoyed the video. This may be one that you want to watch several times to really get the full impact. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free also to leave a comment, and do subscribe to this channel so you can receive future videos just like this one. And I'd also like to offer you a free gift. You can download my 10 Strategies for Your Success ebook via the link in the description below this video. So I look forward to talking with you again soon. Bye for now.